Welcome to Business Coaching Secrets with Karl Bryan. If you want to attract new high-end coaching clients, fill live events, and build a wildly profitable coaching practice where business owners pay, stay, and refer, you've come to the right place. In this podcast, Karl provides his keys to the kingdom for finding and signing high-paying clients and building the coaching business of your dreams. Here we go.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, coaches around the world, welcome to another episode of Business Coaching Secrets. It's your boy, the Road Dog, with none other than the man, the myth, the coaching, let's not call him a god, but definitely a legend, Karl Bryan. Shoots. Welcome to the program.
You're in a good mood when you introduce me that way. Well done, man. How you doing, brother?
Right? It's, you know what? Let's go. Start of another week. We're not to timestamp things, but we're second half of the year. Let's go. Where are people at? Probably, by the way, we're talking a little bit about just lead gen in the pre-show. Folks, get in the pre-show. Good time probably to have that conversation with folks. How's the year going so far? Like, are you hitting your targets? And is that something that you need help with? So that might be a good combo starter. I don't know. What do you think, Shoots?
There you go. I think that is a great question to be asking, man. I think that everybody, look, at the end of the day, thinking is nothing more than asking and answering questions to yourself. So asking yourself a powerful question like, where am I at? Where was I expecting to be at? Why have I surpassed it? Or why have I not lived up to expectations? Reverse engineer that a little bit, and I think that would be a very valuable use of time, like a personal quarterly review, call it.
So I'm chuckling because as soon as you said, where am I at? The first thing that popped in my mind was Joe Biden.
Oh, jeez. I ain't going there, Shoots. Keep going. Not doing it. Not biting, Shoots. Not biting.
What do they say Canada is? It's the apartment above the crack house or something. It's like we're just watching what's happening down south. It's amazing. It's amazing. Never a dull moment, folks. Never a dull moment.
Never.
Okay, before we get into the serious questions, I've got a great question for you. What's one of the best movies you've seen as of late? Not at all business related.
Not at all business related. The new Mission Impossible.
Oh,
and actually, this one, I don't know if this can count because I've watched it, like, sadly. When I like a movie, I watch it over and over and over again. So the the Williams sisters, King Richard.
Okay, yep.
So Mission Impossible. Actually, yeah, Mission Impossible. Like literally watched it last night. Something else that I watched, but this is business related, is the Playboy on Prime. There's like a 7 series, like the story of Hugh Hefner and building Playboy, and like a lot of the, the trials and the tribulations, and they tried to throw him in jail multiple times for all kinds of stuff. It's very, I don't know, it's okay. That's business related, but I like that. So Mission Impossible
Nice.
And King Richard, the answer.
I just watched London Has Fallen last night. That's
Ooh,
my
good.
That was my kind of movie, buddy. Listen, have you seen Olympus Has Fallen, or like those ones where it's just like the USA, the White House gets attacked and the president gets held hostage and they come in to save the day. It was so good. I love that stuff, but I just love it. So anyways, you know what you got to do in those moments though, Karl? You got to be quick thinking. And this is a perfect segue because I want you to quickly answer something for me. I'm going to probably throw 1 to 2 questions at you here. Quick. No rabbit holes. So quick answer.
No promises. No.
Let's see how the week starts, folks. You talk about obviously helping business owners raise their prices a lot, right? And we know how tough that is for business owners to do. Is there a hack or a framework that you have for that?
A hack or a framework for raising prices? Well, you get, okay, the frame, you're going to have to, like, the client is going to go, you know what I mean? And like, oh my God, it's not going to work. So the elite business coach they don't earn trust and create responsiveness. They assume trust and demand responsiveness, right? I say jump, you say how high, and take all of that with a grain of salt, right? But you know what I mean? When you go to a high-end restaurant, the waiters and waitresses walk around like they're a class above the patrons, regardless of the level of restaurant. So there's that. But I don't know, look, immediately increase sales, or let's say prices of products and services with your client. I would do one of three things. I would make it more exclusive. I would make them more scarce. I would make them more limited. And that will work, seldom done, but more exclusive, more scarce, more limited. There's my answer, Shoots. That's how to do it.
When you say exclusive, what does that mean to you?
Okay, so look, not available to everyone, right? So again, it's the red, you know, when you're going to go to a big event, let's just call it Tony Robbins for the sake of the argument. There is a VI, you know, there's the red, what am I trying to say? The red rope, and you just can't get in. You know what I mean? Like you need to be invited. You know, during the seminar, there is a dinner with the person running it. Let's call it Tony Robbins for the sake of the argument. In order to get at that table, it's not, in many cases, not about how much money you have. It's about being invited, and that is exclusive. So and again, yeah, there you go. There's a couple examples.
Okay. Can you hit us with some, maybe not inspirational, motivational, I don't know, just hit us with some of your best quotes.
Ooh. Old Faithful. You can get lucky and make it. You can't get lucky and keep it. Actually, I'll just go to like business coaching mastery when I'm on stage, that sign, and then the crazy ones make all the money. They're right on either side of me for a reason, because it's frankly true. You motivate an idiot, they do stupid things quicker. Not a good idea. What I mean by that, like, look, I was talking to somebody earlier, they do like manifestation work, right? And I'm like, yeah, okay, but once you get, the Jedi mind trick is you get somebody out of their own way, but the question is, then what, right? Like, and if you get somebody, if they've got a dying business model and you get them out of their own way and all they do is accelerate the business model that is already going in the wrong direction. Look, a business owner has an accounts receivable problem, and the business coach shows up and says, look, let's go, let's drive some traffic, let's knock on some doors, let's get some clients in the door. And then they have an accounts receivable problem that they don't, you know, they don't sort it out. What you're really doing is taking a boat with a small hole in it and moving it further and further and further out into the lake, right? So motivate an idiot, they do stupid things quicker. That's where coaching, you know, they say that coaching is, you know, you're asking the question and then they're coming up with the answer, which I always believe that coaching, consulting, there needs to be a hybrid where, yes, I'll ask the question and direct you a little bit, but the reality is if I'm there and I'm authoritative and I know what I'm doing, surely I've got a better idea than you do. I mean, I sat with a buddy, we actually went to game 7 of the Stanley Cup playoffs together, and look, nuts and bolts, he spends $80,000 a day online at advertising online, 80 grand a day, not a week, not a month, a day. And he's basically got let's just call it a low ticket offer, and he monetizes it and he stares at that like imagine what happens if he takes his eye off the prize for 3 days and you're spending 80 grand a day, 80 grand at 80 grand a day. Imagine what, you know what I mean? That's going to add up real quick. So you need to stay on top of it. But what I said and what he agreed to is that, look, he needs you know what I mean, like an upsell. And then what I propose is, like, he needs a $10,000 upsell with at least $5,000 a margin, right? But again, potentially, good example, bad example, and that guy's crushing it, by the way, with his low ticket offer, but he knows what he's doing. But he agrees that one idea the upsell. And then he was like, well, what? And we just, bandied it about for a little bit. We came up with something that quite frankly was pretty awesome. And, he's off to the races. But that would just be an example, like, you don't want to point somebody in the wrong, what does Tony Robbins say? Running in the wrong direction, looking for a sunset, right? Going to your garden and saying, there's no weeds, there's no weeds, there's no weeds. And it's like, yeah, well, the weeds are right here. You got to, identify them strategically, grab them with your hand and rip them the hell out, right? I don't know. So quote, other one off the top of my head, this might be Nabal Ravikant, by the way. Not sure, but I wrote this in an email some time ago. But if you want a PhD in finance, all you do is spend less than you earn and invest the balance. And that's it. And actually we said this, but then a PhD in personal development is just simply think long-term over short-term. Okay, so I think the magic of that is just so insane to me. If you want a PhD in personal development, prioritize long-term over short-term. Boom, that's it. There you go. I don't know, Shades. There you go. You said be quick. How's that? You like?
Yeah, no, that's really good. I actually I read a post the other day that I thought was really, really good, and I just want to share that. And that is because somebody had asked the question of what do you do when things aren't working, and the response was, know that if others were making it work, the only difference between you and them is nothing more than that they know something you don't. And once you figure out what the difference is, then you could do what they do. And that's exactly the process of making your first million. They're not better than you, smarter than you, or luckier than you, just ahead of you on the timeline and know things that you don't. Knowing this, you can close the gap quite easily and get exactly what you want. The reason things aren't working for you is because you don't know what you don't know. So you go from don't know what you don't know to knowing what you don't know to the path to knowing what you need to know to knowing, and then you get what you want.
Ooh, dang, dude.
Pretty good, right?
Drop the mic. I like it.
I love
That reminds. Oh, go.
I was just going to say the thing that I love about that the most is instead of the comparison game, you know what? There's just people on different timelines is all. They're either maybe slightly ahead or slightly behind, and that's cool, right? So anyways, it's just it's interesting. So, but
I like it.
Now that said, because that was a mental needle mover for me, and I know we always like to have what was your needle mover. So give me something needle moving that you've been thinking of this week.
Ooh. Actually, you know what? I just want to, what you just said, it reminds me of like if you have a problem, if you have the money to solve a problem, you no longer have the problem. I think that's really powerful. Like if you got a problem, but you got money to solve the problem, you no longer have the problem. Anyway, so think about what that might mean. Again, I have a dirty house and I can just call somebody to clean it up. That would be very low end example of that. But Elon Musk is trying to get to Mars. That's the problem that he's trying to solve, and he's got the money to do it, and he is finding a way. And again, the gap between him getting to Mars is two things, actually. It's time and money. And resources, which would be people that are going to be able to help, because he's not going to be the guy to build a spaceship, right? But anyway, so something to think about. If you got the money, you no longer have the problem. But here's something my dad said this morning, and I was thinking about this. He said, "Fatigue makes cowards of us all," and I believe that's Vince Lombardi quote. But like, fatigue makes cowards of us all. You got to make sure you are getting enough sleep. Those celebrating, 3, 4, 5 hours of sleep, which by the way is kind of yesterday. That was kind of like the 80s and 90s way of doing it. And nowadays, I think there's a lot of high-end people very much singing the song that you need your, at least 6 and ideally 8 hours of sleep. So yeah, just I think that has got power. But You know, okay, last week we were talking about, like, you know, New Year, we were talking about you should have, if you had, like, you got New Year's and New Year's resolutions, but if you did that 4 times a year, each quarter, there's huge power in that. And I just say that, like, so New Year's resolutions, and let's assume, you know, look what you're talking about is you have some big things that you want to accomplish. You've got some big goals. Well, big goals will require you to have new or different desires. So big goals require new desires, right? And by the way, plan, if you're gonna, like, as you're planning out your year, without question, you should, you know, do it into quarters, like every 90 days. And the reason I think the framework is that it's just too easy to wimp out on the 1-year timeline, right? So by having quarterly, it's going to be closer. It's going to be easier. The closer you are to the finish line, the faster you go, right? Think of a marathon, those last 100 meters. So and then if you know, swing and miss, or you bunt instead of hit a home run on the quarter, guess what? There's just another one around the, you know, there's just another one, and it's coming thick and fast, and you can jump on it. So New Year goal, New Year desire kind of thing is the framework. And when you're looking to accomplish your big picture goal, or your client's big picture goal for that matter, be sure to establish, like, that line between, you know, goal and desire, because they can horrifically mess with one another. So an example, your goal or your client's goal might be to get down to their fighting weight, hit 180 pounds, right? But the desire is McDonald's. The desire is a chocolate sundae, right? Or your client's goal might be peak fitness, which is going to help them accomplish, like, if you know anybody who's been super successful in business, they can tell you that if you're in peak fitness form, you're going to have a significantly better chance of doing it. But that's the goal. And then the desire is beer and, you know, a cigarette or what have you, right? Or, you know, the goal is, you know, a great marriage, but the desire is beer and poker with their buddies 3 nights a week, right? Is that going to get in the way? The answer is yes, right? Or, you know, it's wealth, but they want to look good. They want to drive the new car every 2 years, or they want to buy the boat. And then once they get the boat, what do? They spend an ungodly amount of time doing what? On the boat, because that makes sense, right? So I just think, you know, like, you gotta, you know, again, that, you know, the kid wants to be a professional baseball player, but then he wants to hang out on his iPad and play Warcraft. Is that the name of it? Warcraft, whatever, you know, the video game. My daughter plays Roblox, right? So, like, Roblox, he wants to get great, you know, you want to play Roblox all day? Look, is that a good idea? And by the way, your client, you know, a sales team might be the way, but then their desire is to do it all themselves, right? To save the headache and then not train their staff. And then what they say is, yeah, but if I teach my clients, or if I teach my staff too much, what happens if they leave? And then, you know, that old saying is that we'll teach them nothing and then have them stay, which would be worse, right? So you got to make sure you can't have that framework where, you know, you're the micromanager, the do-it-yourself person, and trying to build this big company. You know, your desire is to micromanage, right? But you want to move into, like, management of your company, and then you want to micromanage everybody you hire, right? Again, they say that like, if you want to build a big company, you build systems. Kind of goes without saying. But let me tell you, you start employing people to make $100,000 a year and more, and have a career with you and want to grow with you, systems stifle creativity. And when you stifle somebody's creativity, you know what they do? They leave. Right. So again, what you've got to be able to do is you got to be able to, you know, take your hands off, and you know what I mean? Just let a few mistakes happen, and kind of look the other way, and make it all good. You know, so big goals, new desires is what I'm getting at there. And question for you as a business coach, like, what are your desires that might be stopping you before you start? Right. Remember, you're enough, but you're nowhere near good enough, right? You're enough, but you're nowhere near good enough to accomplish those big goals, right? So if you want to have more, do more, and be more, I want you to think about that little conversation you're having with yourself in between your ears. What you say to yourself when you're by yourself, to yourself, absolutely matters. So again, relinquishing a little bit of control. So the best advice I can think of, do this, or like needle moving, like quarterly reviews, do 4 new years for your company. And make sure, again, as you make some mistakes, you got to look when you do an event and nobody shows up, you got to look for a reason to advance, not retreat, right? So the fact that nobody showed up has got to make you more pumped up. The fact that you didn't do a good presentation means you need to get pumped up. The fact that you had a heckler there and he involved himself too much and made a mess and tried to sell all your clients, you got to make that a reason to advance, not retreat, right? Get angry, not sad. And the other thing, look, and if you're going to accomplish those big goals or those, desire, you do, whether you realize it or not, or there's a good percentage of you, good chance that you value other people's opinions far too much, right? So again, you're not worried about failing, you're worried about other people seeing you fail. Other people's opinions is something you got to let go by the wayside, and there might be a little bit of a desire there to look good in front of the Joneses. So shoots, yeah, I was just thinking about that from like last week, quarterly New Year's and doing it 4 times a year versus 1, but it's those new desires, man. You gotta attack those desires. You want to sleep in, but you want to go to, you want to be fit as anything, but you want to sleep in until, 8 o'clock. Well, you might need to adjust that and get up and go for a jog, which means you need to shut her down a little bit earlier and maybe get to bed a little bit early. So more discipline. The discipline is what I'm describing there, Shoots. So there's my answer. How'd I do? What do you think?
Yeah, it's interesting when you say that, go to bed earlier. It's funny, I saw Mosey did something where he said people should focus less about setting an alarm in the morning, but rather and set one at night for you to go to bed.
Yeah, perfect.
Right.
Love it.
So,
agreed.
Speaking of sleep and speaking of calm, let's get back into the Karl Bryan Zen moment of
I knew that was coming. I knew it. Zen. Well, okay. Fatigue makes cowards of us all. That's I thought of that this morning when my dad said it to me. That little Zen-like. I'll tell you this, and we are, amongst some pretty unprecedented times with hesitation to timestamp this too much, but the political world is a little crazy. But that I keep getting my old conspiracy theories mixed up with my new spoiler alerts, right? It's like, my heavens. So Zen, I don't know. I'm not the most Zen guy. I'm trying and I'm working on it. I've done a lot of meditating over. In fact, the last week, my wife and daughter are away, family's away, and I've done more meditating in the last week than I have probably done in my entire life. But it's like, look, the reason most people fail is that they never start, right? So, you want to start the business, you want to start the advertising campaign, you want to start the XYZ, you know what I mean? Whatever it is, your client wants to start the XYZ. They're just, again, Zen like this. At the end of the day, you just need to work it out as you go. If you try to work it out too much in advance, it's not going to work out, right? So that look, the reason most people fail is that they don't get started. And then actually, maybe like stupid to think you can make a child act better by making them feel worse. That, again, I don't know how Zen like that is, but you're crazy, again, trying to make it like a child act better, but you're making them feel worse to do it. That might not be the best MO. So there you go, Shoots. Not here to give out parenting advice though, but there you go. That's my take.
Okay, well,
that's what I'm going to say.
We're in a bit of a roll here. We haven't done in a while. Book recommendations. We haven't done that in a while. Like, is there any? So let's just go with. I guess we'll start with. I don't even know. Do you want to do this biz coach or not? Like books you'd recommend for a business coach looking to go to the next level. How about that? That's a bit of an open ender because you could go personal and or professional there.
There you go. Okay. All right. Okay. Well, again, old faith. Look, okay, there, without going to your Facebook feed, there is going to be somebody who's launching a new book that is going to be touted as fantastic, right? And it may or may not be. But what Charlie Munger and Warren Buffett would say if they were on this podcast, and Charlie Munger can't be on this podcast anymore, the late great, may he rest in peace. But what they would say is, look, go to the absolute classics, right? So that would be Think and Grow Rich. Again, and it's it's not like it's Think and Go Rich. It's not Act and Grow Rich, right? Like, in other words, mental model. You gotta think before you act, but at the same time, don't allow that to keep yourself in planning mode for too long. But Think and Grow Rich, right? Before you look, just think about a golf course. If you were to build a golf course without plans, what would it look like? And I think we can agree it would be a dog's breakfast. Try to build a high-rise building without plans. How would that go? It ain't happening. So if your plan is to build a medium-sized, a decent-sized company, you should be building out some plans, and that is where Think comes in. As a Man Thinketh, I think that's Old Faithful, easy read. One that I absolutely love. This is up there with my favorite books of all time. It's Robin Sharma, but The Saint, the Surfer, and the CEO. While we're all zenning out, I've been thinking about that book lately. I might have to go and there was a time many years, probably a decade and a bit ago, that I bought that book for all of my staff. Just loved it. I loved it. And you could imagine, so you got the saint, the very spiritual individual, you got the surfer, real laid back type, and then you got the CEO, highly driven. A great book, especially those with a little bit of workaholicism. Is that a thing? If you're a bit of a workaholic, that might be a good book for you. Steve Jobs' autobiography has got to be on every list we could ever. You're going to recommend a book, look, the Steve Jobs book. And then I'm also going to say Elon Musk, which I just finished reading a couple of times, by the way, and been through it multiple. Oh man, like I said, just so many heuristics and so much good information in there. It's crazy. So anyway, so Steve Jobs, both written by Walter Isaacson, by the way, who does a fantastic job of writing a book. What else? The book that I will always tend to recommend on that one, but is the business book, The Outsiders, 8 unconventional CEOs. And the premise of that is that there's certain CEOs that just love the microphone, love the camera. And if you look at, their track record, on a pure financial basis, you will find that, the quiet, nerdy types have done a lot better than those that are super outspoken. But you tend to see the ones that are super outspoken. Just think of your Facebook feed, by the way, right? Those that are loudest might not have, when stupidity yells, intelligence shuts up, right? I don't know if that's quite what it is saying, but think about that, right? So when the influencer on Facebook is screaming from the mountaintops, you won't see some intelligent people there saying settle down, and you might be horrifically wrong. They kind of just look the other way. Anyway, so that's The Outsiders, great book, the business book, The Outsiders. And The Outsiders, one of my favorite movies and favorite books of all time. In fact, when I met my wife, I asked her, what's your favorite movie of all time? And she said The Outsiders, and that was my favorite movie of all time at that time. So that was kind of cool. But that's not on the list. Poor Charlie's Almanac is another one that I think you should think about reading. The late, great Charlie Munger. He's got to get a mention in there. The Road Less Stupid by one Keith Cunningham, who is a total stud. The Road Less Stupid is a great book. And then I don't know, shoots up probably, I don't even know how many that is, but and the other one that I just think is really, really good, and I believe that this should be must read material for every family in North America that, of course, wants some independence and some financial freedom, that is, which I would assume would be the vast majority. The book Money Master the Game by Tony Robbins. And again, we plug Tony Robbins around a little bit here, and some people shit on him and some people think he's great. At the end of the day, what, his success is undeniable. And that book, the magic of that book is it's 80% psychology, 20% wealth strategies. So yeah, I think that's a really good book, and I think everybody should pick that one up. So, and as a business coach, so it's not how to build your business, but again, you'd be crazy to be a business coach and not understand wealth. And like we talk about this, right, Road Dog, on the podcast all the time, kind of, building wealth, and we talk about, crypto and the stock market and that kind of stuff. I mean, the premise of that, and part of, the idea and why I guess we get the questions and then we answer them, is that your client, again, they're not looking to build a big business. They're looking to get rich because they're looking to get wealthy. And they're looking to get wealthy because they want to be free, right? They don't want to be rich. They want to be wealthy. They want to be free. And then everybody's idea and definition of freedom is a little bit different, which I'd encourage you to always explore that. But that's what they're ultimately looking for. The same shoots like when somebody, I always say, like somebody buys an advertisement, right? So they're advertising on Facebook, they're advertising on LinkedIn, they're advertising, online and spending some real money. Look, the whole idea is that they're driving traffic to get a lead. They want a lead because they want a customer. They want a customer because they want revenue. They want revenue because they want profit. They want profit because they want cash, and profit and cash are not the same thing, to be clear. And then they want the cash because they want freedom. So they buy an ad to get the freedom. And then my question is, does it solve the problem? Does it get there? And I would dare say the answer, a incredibly large percentage of the time, is no, and others it absolutely does. Like in the case of my buddy who spends 80 grand a day, that provides him a lot of freedom. But the local chiropractor who has a go at running Facebook ads, it's often got a bad result. So it doesn't, but remember, they buy the ad to get a lead, to get a client, to get revenue, to get profit, to get cash, but what they ultimately want is freedom. So if you could bypass a couple of those and get them the freedom, and by the way, maybe on the aside, if you do grill your client, like you ask, how much do you need to make to be financially free for the rest of your life? And they're going to come up with some crazy number. They're going to say like 50 million, 20, they're going to give you a big number, right? And then you say, okay, well, reverse, like, go to them and say, okay, well, what do you want to, what kind of car do you see yourself driving? What house do you see yourself living in? How much travel do you see yourself doing? What sort of sporting events would you want to go to? And then you take that and add it up, and you are going to find that they need significantly less money than they think to be financially free, to achieve that quote unquote freedom. So maybe an exercise worthy of a coaching session with your client, kind of reverse engineer that and have a look. But anyways, so those are my answers on books. But again, that Money Master the Game, I think that's a really, really good book. And I think Tony Robbins did a really, really good job at just breaking down, the psychology and then the wealth strategies. But again, the psychology is 80%. Becoming wealthy it's 80% psychological. Becoming a professional hockey player, again, if you're going to become elite, yeah, there's a baseline, there's some genetics and a little bit of God gifted talent that goes with it, no doubt. But when you get to that level, everybody is insanely talented, and 80% of them basically have roughly that same skill set. It's just a matter of how they deploy it, which would be broken down into psychology. So become elite at anything, to become the top 5%. It's just, again, it's a game of psychology. Like, what do you got to do? Decide what you want, spend all day and all night thinking about it, and then act on those desires, and you'd be amazed at what you could pull off. So there's my answer, Shoots. What do you think? There's some books, bud.
So I don't know if I read The Saint, the Surfer, and the CEO. I'm a big Robin Sharma guy myself, because that was the first professional or sort of personal development book I ever read. And for me, it was the monk who sold his Ferrari.
Yeah. Nice. Yeah, I read that too. That's good.
That's a good book. I really, really, maybe that's one you should read, bud, with your Zen moment. Okay, so you've given us your needle moving tip. You've given us your Zen tip. Yep. You've given us your book tips. How about some stock tips?
The what?
How about some stock tips?
Stock. Hey, I've given so that if anybody's followed the tips that I have given, you follow it, you'd be pretty happy with me. That's for darn sure. But
Well,
I
as long
know
as
I ain't doing stock tip shoots. You know what? I guess NVIDIA, I mean, it's just my stock tip is don't pick right now. I would not be picking anything. I would just dollar cost average the S&P 500. That's it. So there you go. That's my stock tip shoots. The stock tip is I don't have one, and I suggest it. In right now, I think that dollar cost average the S&P 500, and you're good. That's my answer.
or should we, not to timestamp it, but should we also maybe get your Democratic presidential pick?
No,
That
hard. No,
hard?
ain't
No,
doing.
really? Come on, bud. Like, let's we could have some fun with it. But anyways, we'll leave that
Okay,
one.
you know what? Okay, Kamala Harris and Gavin Newsom as her pick for vice.
Really? That's what you're going with? You
Yeah.
don't think that I just sent you you and Hansi actually one in the chat, a really good image. It's the Tanya Harding and whatever. What's the other one's name again? And it's basically it's Kamala standing there and then Hillary skating by looking at her.
Nancy Kerrigan. That's who you're thinking of.
There you go.
I've watched that show. I've seen that show, I, Tonya. Oh my gosh, crazy.
Oh my God.
Nuts.
It's yeah. So there you go, Shoots. There you go. So we've got a few more, but do you want to? Because there's another question I got here, and it's kind of big, and I'm sure we can. There's a couple other questions we could get to, but this one's all about when you look back. What regrets, if any, do you have in your coaching career? Like that seems like a heavy one that could take some time. Do you want to save that for next week?
No, that's cool. No, that's cool. No. Okay, so regrets. Look, I'll tell you this. What I hear all the time from our clients, and let's just say the business coaching community, quote unquote, is just, I wish I had gotten started earlier. I can't say that that's not, like, I was very fortunate to get going at the ripe old age of 30. But for those listening, it's either start or go. It's just go, right? And then if you've started, you got to go all in. Again, the clients that have the most difficult time are the ones that are half pregnant, the ones that are kind of, I think I'm gonna, you know what I mean? You're kind of sort of, does this act, big question is, does it actually work, right? Inside their head. But see, the magic of getting started or going all in is that you don't have to die wondering. And I think that like, let's say you start and then you fail. Did you actually fail? And at least now you know that business coaching is not for you, right? So the trick is to just go all in, and then you're going to know. And I had the good fortune, but I was young and I wasn't married and I didn't have kids and all that stuff. And you know what I mean? Life was pretty easy. So I didn't have to make an enormous amount of money in order to make it work, right? I'll also tell you this, the greatest regret of folks, let's just say in their 80s and 90s, when they are surveyed on regret, it's not, I wish I'd made more money, not going to be a surprise. It's also not, I wish I would have taken more risks, which would normally be on the list, I would imagine, of ones that you would think would be up there. I wish I started the business, spent more time with my family. And again, that's on there, right? But the one that is consistent across the board is I wish I wasn't so hard on myself. Like long-term relationships. You introduced me to somebody who's been married for, decade and decades. I'm going to show you two people that have forgiven one another, right? So long-standing relationships take forgiveness, and a lot of it. So research suggests you should give that gift to yourself. And that's a regret I have. Like I am, kind of that A type, go, and have been for a long time. And there is no doubt I have been plenty hard on myself. And question for you though, so if you're listening, do you give yourself the gift of forgiveness? And then I would ask, will you give yourself the gift of forgiveness? And I'm going to tell you that that's going to be your wish when you're on your deathbed or in your 80s and 90s. So maybe you should do it now. But so let's go. But you ask about regrets from my career. I would just not going, it's not that I didn't go all in, because I did, but going all in on education, let's say. And I would like to think at the time, if you asked me, I would say that I was all in, but I didn't really know what all in was, right? Like one of the things I would do is I would take on clients. I was very good at getting the clients, and no doubt about that. But I would only take them on, like the ones that could teach me something were the ones that I would take on. Like again, we had a gal, and she was running a front page ad on this is back close to 2 decades ago, right? But she's running like a Facebook ad on the front page of a daily newspaper, right? Well, I'm like, okay, how's it working? What's working about it? How are you doing it? When she's spending that kind of money on advertising, I just knew that there was plenty for me to learn. And then notwithstanding, she would be willing to take other gambles on other forms of advertising. So I felt like, look, there was a lot for me to learn. So this was a client that I would have taken on. Right. And the clients, they're not smarter. They weren't smarter than me in many cases. Like, right. It's not the Charlie Munger, the Warren Buffett, the Michael Dells, like their level of smart. The reality is smart people do build the biggest companies. Okay. So that, the Bezos, the Gates, earlier I talked about the book, The Outsiders, right? Like again, people with thicker glasses than thinner glasses tend to build those big companies, the Steve Jobs, the, Elon Musk. He doesn't wear glasses, but I think he fits into that insanely intelligent frame, right? And of course, there is an element to DNA there, right? Like my dad, he's got an insanely high IQ, far smarter than the average, and nothing's going to stop that. It's nature over nurture, right? And it is a competitive advantage without doubt when used properly. My dad will tell you though that he's slightly embarrassed that he hasn't done more with more in something a little more prolific with his intelligence, unless of course you use professional gambling as a use of elite intelligence. I also have my ex-fiance. Her brother, like he's like literally a genius. PhD in genetics, and he's now famous in Hollywood. He's worked on all the top movies like Star Wars, Mission Impossible, Mad Max way back when, and the remake, and he's worked with Steven Spielberg, Tom Cruise, the elite of the elite, and he's amongst it. But again, like, okay, what am I like? He's got it. It's nature over nurture, right? But the good news is, and this is again, and I don't share my father's IQ, you can train yourself, you can teach yourself to become significantly smarter. And look, you're not going to create a significantly higher, like a genius IQ. That's not going to, if you don't have it, you're not going to get it. But that being said, you can dramatically jack up, your intelligence and your ability to think at a higher level. Maybe the greatest hack of building a big company, the greatest hack that the best mentors will give you is not a strategy, it's not a tactic, it's a level of thinking. That's what they'll do, right? So by reading, the right books, and maybe it's reading the right book, but then should you read one book 10 times, or should you read 10 books one time? I think you know the answer to that. But the trick is to work out what's that one book. And quite frankly, that takes a level of intelligence to work out what is that one book that you need, right? But most people would rather watch Amazon Prime, Netflix, Disney Plus, right? So that's the hack. You got to discipline yourself to learn. So calendar. So if you like what I'm saying and you go, you know what, I could stand to do some more podcasts like this one, hopefully. Do some audio, do some YouTube, do some audio books, read some books, calendarize it. Like literally schedule it. I did this morning my TTT, time to think. I went into a room, pad of paper, and a pen. Didn't have a pencil, I just had a pen, right? And I asked myself one question. I put it across the top, and I just wrote. Was in there for about 45 minutes. Came out, and incredibly. But again, it calendarized, right? Literally calendarized. So. Yeah, I would just, that's what I'm going to say, Shoots. Skill set without mindset is useless. Like mental models, just understanding mental models, and we talk about it a lot here. Mental models will help you with your intelligence big time. Just think of them as frameworks, which we talk about all the time on this podcast. Like begin with the end in mind, right? The book 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, is that it? It's 7 mental models that Stephen Covey thought were the best, right? Or Tim Ferriss, his 4-Hour Work Week. That's just a book on 80-20, to be clear, right? Even the book The Outsiders, it's a book on the importance of not going with your gut or being flashy. It's a book about the biggest successes are built on the number one commodity in the world, data. Well, there's a debate that, so I would say attention is actually the number one commodity, but let's just go like it's built on data, like hard numbers. Remember, going with your gut. Gut stands for what? Gave up thinking. Go with the data over your gut any day of the week, twice on Sunday. So yeah, Sheets, I mean, I don't know, like regrets, but I will tell you that, the regret that anybody listening, which might, at the end of the day, again, the goal is not to be rich, not to be wealthy, to be free. And I think free from your own personal, what would I call it? You know what I mean? Slaps on the wrists and, being hard on yourself, being forgiving of yourself, which in turn, by the way, you probably realize this instinctively, which will in turn make you more forgiving of other people. But I think that's like the greatest gift you could give yourself. Like it's the coach that never got his business started and beating himself up over it, right? And it's like, well, just start, you know what I mean? And when you start, you go all in and follow what I just outlined. You know what I mean? So there you go, Sheets. That's my answer. How'd I do, bud? Anything to add?
What did you say? No, it's not. You want to say the biggest one is attention?
Yeah, the commodity, number one commodity in the world is your eyeballs and your earlobes. Yeah.
Would you not say that you try to get attention in order to gain data?
I would say that the two rhyme for sure.
Okay.
But at the end of the day, again, eyeballs, earlobes, that's the magic, right? If you have the power to get somebody's attention, it's Gary Vaynerchuk 101, right? Like Gary Vaynerchuk, he'll tell you, like if there's a room with 100 people and there's a room with 250, guess which one he's going to?
Yeah.
250. There's a room with 250 and there's 2,500. He's going to that one, right? Like, where can I get more attention? And that's always, he day trades attention is what Gary Vaynerchuk says. So yeah. I'd also say that it's the number one. Look, here's something important. I would also say that it's the number one asset that you have is your own attention. Mm-hmm. And I think that, again, positive, negative, big thoughts, little thoughts, trivial thoughts or business building thoughts, politics, thoughts on things you can control or things on, things you can't control. You're thinking about big business ideas and concepts or little business ideas and concepts. Are you going after little business owners making $250,000 a year gross, or are you going after larger companies that did $2.5 million gross, or $25 million gross, or $250 million gross? Right. So it's, are you shooting for the, shooting for the moon and ending up at the stars kind of thing?
Would you say, Karl, as well, that one of the biggest hacks is where you're putting your attention?
Yes.
Yeah.
Greatest asset you have. Yes, exactly. Yep. And yep. And again, Paul, like it's so, look, and I'm not in it, like, you know what I mean? I've got sucked in a little bit myself, right? But like, my heavens, it's like I just read this morning, right? Like, here's what got me is that somebody's saying that Donald Trump didn't actually get shot, right? And he's saying there's plenty of proof to back that up, right? And I was like, I just couldn't. I'm like, what? I've got it. Like, what is that? And then I'm like, and I just shut her down, right? I'm like, I'm not just that. Whether Donald Trump got shot in the ear or not has literally got zero effect on my life. You know what I mean? Like, either way, it comes out either way. Me, and by the way, I would like to know, I can tell you that, but you know what? Nothing that I am going to read or research or, give my attention to today is going to change that result. You know what I mean? So again, the old question, does it make the boat go faster, right? So what is your boat? And let's assume that that's your business coaching company. And then the way that your boat goes faster is by getting more clients. And then it goes faster by getting a higher level client. And then it goes even faster by getting a good client, a high level client who stays for a long time, right? So those are the things that make your boat go faster. Those are things that you can control. And you should, instead of, researching Donald Trump, Kamala Harris or Joe Biden and, whatever's going on, like what you can control over what you can't control. So I spoke to a young guy yesterday, right? We had in the Caribbean here, we got like this awesome party on like this just on a remote island. It's crazy with a big DJ, and it's just like a huge event here, right? Anyways, when I was talking to this guy, he's a young guy, he's 33 years old, I believe. Actually sent him a link today that I wanted him to watch. But at the end of the day, he was talking about, look, he wants to buy a home. And let me just tell you, if you are 30 years old, the thing that might be holding you back financially above all else is your need or your desire or the way you feel that you need to buy a home might be the thing that's holding you back above all else. So I kind of went through a little, I did a little bit of a, diagnostic with them, like, where are you at? Where, what are you doing? How much you earning, how much you spending? What I mean, just did a quick some math, right? And we're standing in the ocean. And I basically I just said, look, man, okay, so how much time do you spend a week looking at real estate? And he goes, X, 10 hours a week, which I think it's more than that, but he gave me, number like 10 hours a week. And I'm like, man, take those 10 hours and put them into becoming an elite, like the top 5% in your trade, instead of researching the real estate that, by the way, you're not able to buy right now and you're not going to be able to buy right now. And by the way, remember, the goal is not to be rich. The goal is not to be wealthy. The goal is to be free, right? And I explained that to him, and I said, look, I really think with you and your numbers and where you're at, I think, again, dollar cost average, the S&P 500 is exactly what you should be doing, which, by the way, he has loosely started. And I'm just like, that's exactly what you have got to do. Like, that's a better plan for you, right? Because by the time you finally get the dollar figure saved up to buy that house, that's money that could have been, that's money and time, money and time in the market. Time in the market is more important than trying to time the market or your chances of success. But remember, dollar, so as soon as you go, oh, but there's going to be, the stock market's going to go to hell. Okay, well, dollar cost average. So when it goes down, he's going to buy well. But if it keeps going up, and do not think for a second that we could have, we could have another 5 years of run on the stock market, which, by the way, do I think that? I'm going to err on the side of I don't see that happening. But let me tell you, Warren Buffett don't know, right? I certainly do not know. You do not know. Your mentor, whoever's in your ear telling you that they know, definitely doesn't know. So that was what I came up with for him. But so the power of that, if you know somebody in their 30s, there's a pretty good chance that their need to buy a home, their desire to buy a home, could be the thing that is restricting them financially above all else. Because remember, a PhD in finance is spend less than you make and invest the balance, right? Well, if you're saving up for a home loan, are you investing the balance? And the answer is no. So anyway, Shoots, we could probably go on with that, but I think the goal isn't to be rich, the goal isn't to be wealthy, the goal is to be free. Define free. You, your clients, your kids, your loved ones, etc. It's my answer, Shoots.
Love it. Okay, well, we're going to close it out there. I think there's a lot of nuggets there today for sure. And I can't possibly get you to just think of one thing, because holy smokes, there was a lot there. So I'm just going to close it out and say thanks everybody for tuning into another episode of Business Coaching Secrets with the King of the Caribbean, King Karl. If you're not on the inside and you're not getting access to the pre-show, or you aren't, you want to just learn how to scale, you want to learn how to grow your coaching business, you want to learn about flash coaching, profit acceleration software, all these things, go to focused.com. and learn more there, and subscribe, of course, to Karl's daily newsletter. And again, if you enjoyed the pod, please, leave a review, give us a thumbs up, subscribe, do all the things, and definitely get this in the hands of another business coach or someone looking to become a business coach, as we want to get this message out to as many folks as possible. And that is it for another week. We will see you on the next episode. And remember, folks, progress equals happiness. Take care, everybody.
Karl Bryan built Profit Acceleration Software 2.0 to train business coaches how to find any small business owner more than $100,000 in 45 minutes without them spending an extra dollar on marketing or advertising. This becomes a business coach's superpower. So as a business coach, you'll never again have to worry about working with business owners that can't afford your high-end coaching fees. Check us out at focused.com.